Hey guys, welcome Sunday night. I'm so excited to hear from everybody. Hey Dr. Boz, how are you doing?
Well, I just got back from Pella, Iowa, and
Oh,
had a really great weekend. We did a workshop that I love to do, but their youth coalition asked me to come, and I did a couple hours on Friday night, and then we got started right at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and didn't get done till like 1:30. Some hungry people that weren't keto, they definitely were
oh.
done by the time we
We,
got to 2 o'clock.
Sandy in the group, I saw where she posted a picture of you signing her shirt. I
Oh,
was
yay!
so excited to see her post that.
Oh, it was the coolest thing. I have never had that happen where somebody said, I quoted you on this t-shirt and I want you to sign it. I'm like, I want to kiss you. This is the coolest moment ever.
I love that. She's a sweetie. I love watching her journey too.
Yeah, she's really had an impressive weight loss, and just
Yeah.
the amount of improvement she's had and how she feels. Incredible at what she's reversed the number of prescriptions, but also like symptoms, and just had a positive energy that was just infectious. You wanted to stand next to her and say, "You should come
Yeah.
up on stage and just teach this with me. It'd be better."
Yeah. Yeah. Her smile was just so genuine. You could
Yeah.
just see how happy she was. You could tell that she feels good. That is just awesome. I love seeing that.
Yeah, it was top 10 moments. Like that was cool. I've never had that happen, and I'd take it again. That was cool.
Right. I wished I could have been there. And I'm hoping you're doing another one, I think in
Mhm.
August.
Yeah, so
And
again, a Friday night and a Saturday, this is the first time we'd done that, but I think it really worked out well because one of the presenters said, he came to this workshop because of the Department of Defense employs me to teach them about brains and how do you repair them and what's the rules with addiction. So, um, did a great job of teaching him, but he's mandated to be there. It's part of his job to be there. And he goes, so we kind of did this where we started on Friday night and there's only a couple of hours. And if everybody wants to leave, they just don't have to show up the next day. And I'm like, he goes, I don't mean any disrespect. It was just, we're not sure how well we could sell, an 8-hour workshop or, whatever it is, 9-hour workshop. And I said, well, that's a good plan. We'll see how many show up. And everybody showed. In fact, one lady brought her husband. And I'm
yay.
like, that is a testimony to say it's a beautiful sunny day in Iowa. And I'm going to have you sit in a, air conditioned room and listen to some lady you don't know anything about. But he did
Well,
good.
I hope to catch that one in August, and we'll have to give people a heads up on where that is so we can get another big crowd together because I hear it's really amazing.
It did. It worked
Hey,
well. I think it was worth it. Yeah.
yeah, but hey, what we're going to talk about tonight, we've got a couple of questions because there's been so many requests, and we pulled just a hodgepodge of questions that people have asked, and we're going to just knock out about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of these, as much as we can knock out in the hour. And the first one, I think the very first one that we wanted to talk about was this is probably leaning towards more of your stricter carnivore type eating keto eaters, where somebody maybe tries to go full on carnivore. They eat strict protein with healthy fats, and then they find that they get really nauseous or they even throw up. It's too much and they can't have it. What is happening in their system? Because I know this happens also with some people who try and do the beef and butter fast. They have to dial it back a little bit.
Right. So if you look at high protein, I think that it's a perfect time to just remind people when you're looking at the ketogenic diet and you're using the right words to describe it, it is not a high protein diet. It is a high fat diet. So I take an opportunity just to tell a little bit of facts because in recent days, I've had, not just from this workshop, but probably over the last week, people say, I was on this high protein diet, and then they would talk about their high protein diet. And I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not a high protein diet. I like the stories that, or the lessons in medical school that we used that showed, have you ever heard of the rabbit diet? So again, a rabbit doesn't have much fat on it. A rabbit is high protein. And if they would eat rabbit meat, they would have really high protein, but not much fat and clearly no carbs. So again, it was a high protein diet. And when they put people on this, it actually, they die. A high protein diet where they don't have fat was correlated to a death rate. So looking at, and if you Google the rabbit diet, high protein rabbit diet, death by rabbit diet, and you say, well, is that a thing? And I'm like, yes, you do have essential proteins, and you get those from a high protein, from obviously other proteins, but you also have essential fats. And when they didn't have any of the fats, they died. So you first talk about, are there things that can happen when you surge up that protein really high, especially if they do it without keeping that fat as the primary part of their diet. So if you take folks who who go on to the beef and butter fast, where they've got it's hamburger, or I know there's some substitution, but let's just pretend it's hamburger and butter. Okay, great. Plenty of fat should be in that. It should be a juicy meal. It shouldn't be a dry hamburger. You want it fat. Add some sour cream, add some guacamole, whatever it is, like to make even more fat, right? I know it's beef and butter, but that could be some other ways you added fat. The key component there is that it doesn't turn into a strict high protein. Now, I think you do the beef and butter fast for is that 4 days or something? Like I did it once with you, and I think it was four days, maybe, is what I remember. Yeah. So you're never going to die in 4 days. So don't get yourself worried that somehow this is going to be deadly. But I point that out to say, looking at nutrition, we can take the facts of a ketogenic diet, and if they only are grabbing a snippet of them and then applying it excessively, you can get some harebrained ideas, some that aren't healthy for you. When we look at the folks who say, I had overwhelming nausea, I think this is my body sending me a signal. Doc, this must not be the right diet for me. I have overwhelming nausea. What I usually point out is, now this is my experience, that most of the people who tell me that, they are not the 40 years of metabolic syndrome. They are not the years and years and years of difficult metabolism. They are relatively healthy when they're the ones getting the nausea. And what they've done is they've bursted up that fat intake, and with that comes the production of something called cholecystokinin. It is a hormone that speaks to your brain. It also speaks to your gallbladder, where the gallbladder is gonna do a nice squeeze if you have one. If you don't have one, it also stimulates the release of some of the bile that your liver would make. And what that gallbladder bile or the liver bile does is it emulsifies the fat so that your body can absorb it. If you put a whole bucket of bile into your gut in a hurry, it does not feel well. It does cause nausea. High amounts of cholecystokinin, which is what the hormone is that telling the gallbladder to squeeze, also send a signal back to our brains to say, hey, you can slow down. You don't need to eat so much. We're good. Take a break. Stop eating so much. And of course, if it's a really hearty dose of that hormone, it can feel like, oh, I think I'm going to throw up. This is the signal I get before I get sick. And so I point out that it's probably a healthier person. And again, this is relative to my clinic. When I look at the chronically inflamed patient, 30 years of diabetes, 30 years of metabolic syndrome, struggled with weight for 30, those folks are usually not the ones that get the nausea. And the reason why is when they make cholecystokinin, when they give the message, it's this little bitty hormone. They give a little bitty blip because their body's out of shape for making that hormone. I'll find the nausea associated with my 25-year-old gal who's been overweight for 3 or 4 years, and her body still makes pretty good hormones. Her fat-based production of hormones is still pretty solid. So when she eats a glutton of beef and butter, she will have a huge spike in that hormone. And that kind of lands on her gut saying, I'm going to give you a clear message not to do that again.
So basically you just eat less. If you ate less and if you didn't take it so much, because it is amazing when you eat beef and butter, it takes literally just this much before you're like full. And people don't realize that you can actually feel full eating very little of the right amount of foods.
Exactly. And I mean, like, I think when I did the beef and butter fast with you, I mean, it was like I think a half a cup of ground beef that I was like, all right, I'm pretty good. But again, can you remember that time when you first became ketogenic, that the volume of food we used to eat, whether it was like processed and just took a lot of time to chew and eat, you could be munching on stuff for a good 45 minutes. I mean, really, like you could do that. And then you kind of transition to this high fat diet. And at first I did this too. Boy, I just ate a lot. I did, because I was used to this time that was spent eating. And now as I've kind of matured in that whole like feedback, I definitely say, oh yeah, the amount of time spent eating isn't quite, I mean, I don't need as much time, but I also learned to slow it down, take it easier, don't quite get that much effort in. I mean, like, when you eat, there's more things happening than just the food. Be in the moment with the people you're around. Make sure that you take in the social factors that are supposed to happen. And as if I give my body a little bit of time, it does feel full after about that half a cup of ground beef.
Oh yeah, I was shocked the first time I did the beef and butter fast. I couldn't believe. Excuse me. I should tell you how I was. I met Danny Vega at KetoCon. By the way, KetoCon is happening next week. I'm going to be there. I hope. I don't know. Is anybody else going to KetoCon next week? Anyway, I met Danny Vega there. Gosh, was it 2 years ago now? What were you going to say?
What city is KetoCon in?
Austin, where I live.
Oh yeah, it's in Texas.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's a Texas thing. Yep, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm only going to be there Saturday. I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I've gone the last couple of years and I'm only going Saturday this time. But anyway, I met some bodybuilders. I think Richard Sykes, Danny Vega. I met a lot of them and they had a talk. They had a very interesting talk. And they were telling you how to get buff and how to do this and how they won competitions on keto. And I was like, dude, I just want to break a stall. Like, what the hell? I mean, what the heck? And I talked to them after and I was like, okay, how do you train for these competition that you're doing? Like, just tell me, what am I doing wrong? And I just remember seeing, I'm sure there was steak, I'm sure there was this, but I just remember thinking, man, that's a lot of ground beef you eat. And then he's like, yeah, I put butter and, whatever. And I was like, okay, dude, I'm totally, I came home, I told my husband, I'm going to train. He's like, oh no, what are you doing now? And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm doing something that's causing my stall and I've got to figure it out. And what are you going to do? What do I have to do? But he just wanted to know what he had to do. And I'm like, you don't have to do nothing. But I met these bodybuilders and I'm going to eat beef and butter. I'm going to try it for 4 days. I'm going to figure it out. And I figured the macros to a T, to where a certain amount of beef and a certain amount of butter and what those macros look like. And sure enough, it was the perfect combination of a very strict diet. And the carbs were the right amount of very strictness for the 5 grams was your seasonings. And yeah, the seasonings were the carbs.
Where does carbs come from? Is it just seasonings that did it?
Just the seasonings. And I don't like to eat the same meal every day. So I made a taco. I think I made a Cuban. I mean, I seasoned that so many different ways. But the shocking thing was in 4 days, I lost 4.7 pounds.
Wow.
But after that, I went back to, it really taught me more than just breaking a stall, because it teaches you when you go through a fast like that, it teaches you how much extra dairy you're putting in there, all these extra sweeteners that you don't need, how much you eat. When you go through a fast and you only eat this amount of food and you realize that you haven't been doing just that, it is such a learning experience, way more than just a 4-day fast, because I learned so much about the diet after that experiment that the weight kept on dropping even when I went back to putting a little bit of cheese or putting hot sauce or avocado or whatever, it kept moving.
I think there's something that I remember thinking, like I felt free the first time, like the first 6 months on the ketogenic diet, that I was able to eat these things that had been taboo. And so I was just so thankful. And then you feel great. And somehow you kind of don't really think that there should be any limit at all. And for most, and I talk about in that book too, like when you look at change in people's lives, if you're going to start out and say, we're going to take care of these top 15 things, you're going to lose your whole audience, because no human being can change that many things at once.
No.
So if you say, all right, we're going to give you some of the best taste in food. I don't want you to look at calories. I want you to listen to your body. I want the food to taste amazing. And I don't want you to think about anything else, at least for 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And once you've got that rhythm down, then we'll talk about some other rules. But don't look at the other rules. Focus on high fat, tasting good.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah. JC said, hold on. JC just had a good question. He says, I have gout. He said he might have to try chicken and butter. So if you have gout, is beef off limits?
Well, no. It's great, because let me do a little side cap on gout. I have a video on this, but every time I teach about it, when I would tell a patient about their gout, I'd say, congratulations, you have the behavior of a king. And so if you go back at the original, kind of the origin of where gout was really most documented early in medical literature, it was associated with a king. And so the king would have access to a whole bunch of meat, and they had access to very rich foods. They also had access to plenty of booze. And they would be these big fat tummies, and they would have, bodies that were massive. And then in the pictures, you see this big round tummy, and then you see their toe was just, on fire. And what you would say is it was considered a king's disease. Like you didn't get it in the normal people, because they were not overweight. They had meat, but not so much. Think of it as gluttony. And I know that sounds awful to tell a patient, but we've all had this, like not all had gout. We've all had gluttony. We've all eaten too much or had too much.
Yeah.
But when the body has had an abundance, especially of nitrates, which do come from meat, you'll see doctors say, oh, you got to swear off Coca-Cola because there's nitrates in that. You got to swear off any kind of meat. And then somehow they'll tell you that a meat has a little bit more nitrates than the other one. So that's okay, stop. First and foremost, gout is inflammatory. It is super inflammatory. That's why one of the history lessons we teach medical students is, if the patient says that the air hurts on their toe, they've got gout. Okay, it hurts that badly. Their toe is so painful. Like if the sheet touches their toe, boom, it is painful. So if you look at the history things that have that kind of pain associated with it, it is an inflammatory problem, period. Don't look further. When I have patients get really tied up on what kind of meat has a little bit more nitrates, I tell them they're missing the forest for the trees. What I want you to do is back off on the inflammation. And unfortunately, if you've had gout and we put you on a ketogenic diet, you are going to decrease the inflammation. And the crystals that formed are going to melt. They're going to work their way backwards. What I can't control is at what part of the crystal is going to work backwards first. So if I got to script and I had to give permission to what part of the crystal of that gout worked away from the toe, we would start at the very outside part of the crystal and we would kind of dissolve it from the outside in. But that's not always what happens. Sometimes it's kind of like a glob of crystals, and then the neck of the crystal breaks free, and that, oh man, it hurts. That's like, doc, your diet gave me gout. And I'm like, well, the truth is you had gout, and then we were trying to reverse it, and you were unlucky enough to have that crystal break free and move. And whenever that crystal moves, yeah, it hurts. It's going to hurt. So I'm sorry. Here's the best advice I can give you. Stay the course, because going in and out of ketosis is inflammatory. And every time you inflame that toe, you run the risk of another flare. So staying in ketosis is the answer. And then when they have gout, I have them check their blood. I really push for the monitor. Like, I know I tell you to use ketones and you don't have to check your blood, but if you've had a gout flare, I really need to make sure that at least
Your
their doctor by my
something happened with your sound. Yeah. So I guess if you have gout, stay the course, trust that you'll get through it. And it really is just breaking down those crystals in. You know what? There's been so many comments after looking back. Everybody wants to talk about keto rash. They're getting rashes on their faces. There's rashes on their bodies. Like, let's talk about what people want. They want to talk about keto rash.
So keto rash, actually, I think, have we ever talked about this?
I
don't think we have.
I don't think we have. We talked about keto crunch once.
Yes, but to the JJs, we'll get lots of attention for that one.
Yeah, I don't think
this is not a rash in your vajayjay. This is a rash on the body. Let's be clear.
Yeah, let's talk keto rash because I think there's a lot of people that want to know about it.
So again, this is a rash that is when anybody gets a rash on the keto diet, they will quickly think, oh, this must be keto rash. And I would push you to look for a rash that is on your trunk. Usually it's on the trunk of the body. Facial rashes happen for lots of different reasons, but kind of neck and trunk, even on the thighs, I've seen it. But most of the time it's on their trunk. So again, it is a redness. It's a dermatitis, which means swollen skin, if you would, inflamed skin. And I'll kind of profile the people that I see it in. So when I have somebody who's been unhealthy, and I know nobody likes to identify themselves with that, but if you look at the folks where, as I write the new chapter, some of the chapters of my book, I have a couple of things where I've quantified who's the sickest. And it really has to do with who is eating more than 200 carbohydrates a day. And you'd say, well, isn't everybody? Not true. But when you get the people who've they have 300, 350 carbohydrates every day, I call them, they are in the 200 or more club, the 200 club. And that means they eat more than 200 carbs per day. What you can really associate that with is the higher carbohydrates you're on before you step into the ketogenic diet, the more chronic inflammation has been happening. Whether or not you've produced this rash before is not easy to discern. Sometimes the rash has been there, but they've never really noticed it. Now that the rash comes on the ketogenic diet, one Google search says it must be the keto rash and it must be because of this diet. So when you look at the skin of somebody who is under chronic inflammation, they don't do a good job of repairing it. They don't have the tools. And by the tools, I mean, there's some fat components, especially some vitamin components that are fat-based that repair skin. Now that you have flushed away that inflammation and you are on the ketogenic diet, it usually is happening within the first 3 months of a ketogenic diet. And that skin is going through a rapid change of, we had really unhealthy skin, and now under it, we have a much healthier layer of skin. But the two of those do not go well together. So sometimes you'll see that this rash, after it fades, or like the redness will go away and they get a brown, it turns into a brown spot on their, so that is melanin. And that melanin came from a bunch of dead skin cells that just hung out there. Now, sometimes it doesn't go away. So it is, because, so the melanin just kind of passes into the next layers of skin. And you'll see what many non-physicians, and I don't know if okay, I hear poor advice of people saying, just throw some carbs back at it. And I would tell you not to do that. Again, what you're really running into, what's the pathology of this, is you have some really gnarly looking skin cells if you looked at them under the microscope. And then under that, while on the ketogenic diet, you are going to make more plump and resilient and squishy. That's actually a good thing in skin cells, squishy, flexible skin cells, and they don't mesh well with the inflamed ones. We want you to get past it. So here's a couple of things that you can do. lubricate your skin. And I've had people say coconut oil worked the best. I'm like, I don't care, it's cheap, use that, that's great. But keeping it oiled, that is very helpful. It turns out that sweating is going to make it drier, and so that skin cell that's already a little gnarly and inflamed, if you sweat, makes it even worse. But adding back carbs, now you have the gnarly skin cells, and then you have the plump skin cells. And if you keep those carbs too high, which is really easy to do, especially early on the diet, you're kind of all in, and you start to add back carbs, and now you're like, I'm all in, and then I fell all the way off. So then you've got a rash, then you've got the plump cells, and now you've got some gnarly cells coming back. So what I would recommend is A, stay the course. B, I would be checking your numbers, because we really want their Dr. Boz ratio. They're never going to hit 80 yet. They're way too early in the zone. I mean, I try to get their Dr. Boz ratio under 120, which isn't too hard. But again, you're kind of steadily improving their journey. The other thing is your body repairs best when you get good sleep. So the other kind of profile that I found with who gets a keto rash is they tend to be my poor sleepers. So that body heals really well when you are getting really nice restorative sleep. So again, you try to fix too many things at once and they're going to fall all over the place. But if you look at the keto rash, it is an inflamed part of the skin cells. It does get better, especially if you kind of keep in your mind that guess how long it takes to get a fresh layer of skin cells. It's about 90 days, 12 weeks, 3 months. And there's lots of good things that come after the keto rash, but I would not treat with what I see a lot of the internet says is throw some carbs back at it. You're going too fast.
So, and the first thing I thought of is fasting, but they're too early in their game to fast. So fasting repairs cells. So the rash comes too early in the game, but fasting repairs cells, but you don't want to do it because it's too painful when you're not fat adapted. So that's, you really lotion up and stay the course
it is something where the most likely to have it, and this is where you say, I do want you eating as much fat as possible. I don't want you fasting those first 4 to 6 weeks. I've had folks come to my keto group and they said, I started out the keto diet with a 10-day fast. And I'm like, you did what?
No way.
And I'm like, that's crazy. But again, those people who are healthy and they tried to do that, they probably didn't run into a problem. But the people who hear that, if they are the keto folks that they really do need the diet. They're inflamed. They've been insulin resistant forever. They now step into it and they're doing pretty good, and they get this side effect of a rash. And then the confusion of all these things like go harder, go stronger, go longer, go carbs. There's too many things to tell them. I think the real issue here is, remember, you were at this really inflamed place. We've now plummeted into a place that's not so inflamed. Stay the course. You're going to make healthy skin cells in the next 6 or 8 weeks. It will get better. Lubrication is important. Try not to exercise. Sweating makes it worse. So don't be that person. Stay the course. The other part that I've had on the brown rash is there is another syndrome that happens to rash, that happens to skin before they come to see me. And that is, it's a darkness on the back of their neck. The back of their skin looks very brown and velvety. And that velvety brown skin has a really fancy name. That's not the important part. It is that when you have high amounts of insulin, high amounts of growth factor, they start growing extra layers of skin. And if you do a biopsy of this velvety looking skin, it is the kind of skin cells that are made under high sugar, high inflammatory, and high insulin state. In those patients, they are more likely to have this skin rash. So they've had this darkness in the back of their neck. They'll say, it's not dirt, doc. I've tried to wash it off. And then the next layer comes that they get on the keto diet. Plenty of things are going well. We're giving them praise for all the good parts they've done. And then they get a keto rash because, again, the skin is impacted by the reduction in the growth factor, the reduction in the inflammation. And you'd like to say, okay, all of the complications are going to be over now, but they are taking a very inflamed system and reducing the inflammation. And sometimes that transition, it really plagues them with side effects.
So very interesting. I have never had a keto rash, and I sleep wonderfully. So maybe there is.
Yeah, well, and you look that you had some health problems, so you would have had, that you would have had one of the risk factors. But it really, for as many people as I've seen, it's amazing how rare I see this. So yeah, I would say.
Interesting. So you touched a little bit. Oh, you know what? I got to give you an update real quick.
Yes, because I actually have had several people say, "Tell me about Jennifer and how she's doing." We've gone off on. I almost called you today and said we should have you on my channel as just a sacred time to interview you, because I actually got I stole my husband's computer, and I'm not on my husband's computer for this, but I was on earlier, and I thought, oh, it's going to work well enough that I can finally interview the people that I've put off. But I'm not good at it. I'm not very good at it yet. So that is on my to-do list, though, to say we need to have a formal review of Jennifer Marie, but let's do it now.
Yeah. So, ever since school got out, we went on vacation. I'm getting over celebrating the launch of the cookbook and all the work that went into that. And, I'm very upset because the gym that I joined is a brand new one 5 miles down the street. And they were supposed to open the day after school got out. So my mission was to start exercising right when summer starts. Well, they were a month late due to weather or whatever. And they opened 2 days ago, and I've been to the gym twice.
Okay.
So let me tell you, I suck at exercising.
Okay, so hold on. Tell me about the gym. What's in the gym that's attractive? What do you like? Besides that, it's close to your home, which actually convenience is an important part. What's in the gym?
I don't like anything about the gym. There's nothing about the gym that I like. No, going there is a job, and I just look that I need to get my job done. So I go there. It's I don't even remember the name of it, LA Fitness or something. So it's really nice. It's new. It's open. It's got rows of cardio. It's got tons of equipment. It's got tons of dead weights. It's got all the circuits. It's got a pool. That's nice. So I go in. I do my cardio. I did legs yesterday, and I did arms today. And I just go. I warm up on the elliptical. Don't laugh. I only did a mile.
So honestly, here's the part that I'm really good at this, and I didn't used to be. I have a character flaw that, so on my wedding cake, instead of a bride, my husband placed a bulldozer, because when I get my head set on something, it's just like full force ahead, and it can be an issue. But I pride myself on, in recent years, saying, okay, I'm going to take on just enough. And I would tell you that, saying, okay, so here's the danger of a gym schedule, is just like all these changes we ask all these patients, these people to make. When you walk in and say, okay, I've got to do, I don't know, pick something. The warm up of cardio for a mile, how long did that take you?
10 minutes and 32 seconds. Don't laugh.
No, I would say that's excessive. No. I would tell you, don't do that. 3 minutes is a warm up.
Oh.
Yes, 3 minutes. Again.
Okay. So one thing about me, I'm a bit of an overachiever, and I totally thought I was failing. At 10 minutes and 30 seconds, it took me to do a mile on the doggone elliptical.
So the cool part about especially when you haven't exercised in a while, the best part is you're going to get a ton of, just like when the first person goes on keto, they lose a ton of weight because they're starting from here, and any improvement makes a great difference.
Yes.
So 3 minutes is a good warm up. And what you're trying to do is keep that time that you spend at the gym very efficient. Like to say, I don't want to be here a long time. I want to
Yep.
be just enough to wake up some mitochondria. And I tell myself that, like, I'm just going to do enough to wake up my mitochondria in this section of my body, and then I'm done. I do not look back. And that self-talk has been powerful for me.
Good.
So 3 minutes, whatever you like to do, like pick something. Sometimes I don't even really try on the warm-up bike. I just sit there and I make the bike turn. I don't really look, but I give myself 3 minutes of just saying, okay, look around. Today, here's what you're going to do. And then, like, what section of your body did you say you did?
So yesterday I did legs, and today I did arms.
Yeah.
And don't ask me how it went.
So when you do legs, is that like, is there a weight circuitry or something?
Yeah, well, there's all these machines that work all these parts of your legs, and they say work one muscle group one day and then don't do the same one in the next day. So I did core. I did crunches and all the core parts, which I think you can do those every day. So I did some rows. I did that pulling rowing machine. I did crunches, and then I did every machine that they had for legs. And when we left there, my daughter was with me, and she loves the gym. Like, where the heck did she get that from? I don't know.
Thank God some things are learned without imprinting, huh?
Yeah, she's like, this is so much fun. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, we left to go to HEB after that to get some groceries, and I thought my legs were going to give out. Like, I literally thought I was going to fall.
So is it your plan to go every day?
No.
Oh, good.
No. My goal is 3 days a week. I might do 4, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I loved when I first started, I did CrossFit, and mainly it was because they were known for variability. They promised me, and they actually stuck to this, that there was scalable workouts. Because if you look up CrossFit online, it's for freaks. Like, oh my gosh, they do pull-ups till their arms fall off or something. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just want somebody to help me do it in an efficient time.
Yeah.
The longest workout you do is 28 minutes. And I think you do like 4 of those a year. Most of their workouts are like between 10 and 12 minutes.
Oh.
And so, but they're super intense. And so you get like, and that's where I'm like, oh, I like the compartmentalization. Like, don't make me do all the extra, like, just give me the time to make that work. So if you said, okay, I'm going to take one muscle group, I'm only going to be here for this muscle group.
Yep.
And you do like 2 or 3 machines, and you do them over and over and over again, just those 2 or 3 over and over and over. Every minute on the minute, or, do 2 minutes or what, find a circuit kind of way to do it.
Yeah.
And then you walk the heck out of there. Done. Over. Don't look back.
Good. That's what I did.
That's exactly what you should do. Because all you're trying to do is ignite those mitochondria. They haven't been working. You will have the benefit of they're in a keto body. When I talk to athletes and say, okay, you've got all these muscles working, and now we're going to try to flip them over to use some ketones. You have a different equation. You have all of your body trying to use ketones for the better part of 2.5 years or something. Yeah. And now we're just trying to increase the use of those cells. So it's a much easier equation. You get much more reward out of that short, intense time where you just say, mentally, I'm thinking of my mitochondria. I'm going to ask them to use ketones. I'm only going to be here for 15 minutes, and I will work my tail off and walk out that door. Done.
Well, I can tell you, everybody says, oh, I'm so energetic after I work out. You know what? No. I came home and I napped yesterday and today. And I slept hard. Like, what the heck? Where's this energy that people are talking about you get from working out?
Well, the interesting part about that is that you will have an improved metabolism over the course of the next few weeks.
Okay.
But when you first start out, you're like, no, you just burnt up all your fuel. Now your liver needs to make some more. And guess what? Sleeping during that is not a bad plan.
Yeah, well, I did, and pretty hard. Today I worked out the arms, and there's shoulder machines. There's all kinds of machines. And luckily there's a little app that shows you how to use it. And it's really easy to figure out how to use it. But on one of those machines, I couldn't even put weight. I had to use no weight. And I think it was the shoulder machine to where you're doing like this. I thought I was going to cry. I'm like, who uses these machines with no weight? Okay, I got to start somewhere. Like, let me just tell you guys, I am such a beginner.
What time of day did you work out?
Okay, so I had 2 cups of coffee in the morning. I did a little bit of work, and then I think I went at 10 because I wanted to do it before I ate.
Oh, I was going to say, were you fasting? Because there's a comment over here from Donna saying, why don't I get as sore when I work out fasted? And first of all, it's a great time to work out is when you fast. People think, oh, you don't have any energy to work out if you fast. No, that's not how it works. You will empty glycogen from your muscles when you fast. But the best part about being in a ketogenic state is you repair faster because the inflammation is much lower when you're in a ketogenic state versus a glucose fed state. When you look at tearing a muscle, that sounds awful, but that's what happens when you push your muscles is they do have micro tears. The ability to quickly mend it back together is dependent on there not being water in the way. So the anti-inflammatory state, when there's water in the way, that's when it hurts. That's when the pain is conducted and it hurts. When you have no inflammation in the body or a lower amount of inflammation on the ketogenic diet, that's where that repair process is increased. You look at some of the national athletic teams and how many of them have, their physicians have encouraged those athletes to move to a ketogenic diet. The number one evidence they continue to cite is the repair time for the athlete, that they can mend their bodies back to a functional state much quicker than when they're not in ketosis.
So Lisa Ross asked, when can you start the ketosis diet and how long before you start working out after you start?
Ooh. Yeah, I would take your time. So again, one of the reasons why you've asked several times, should I go to the gym? Should I go to the gym? And we've been doing this for, 6 or 7 months now. Yeah. And I said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Improve one thing at a time, get really good at it, then go to the next thing. And, at first it was, we moved your eating window 8 hours after sunrise and really kept that good. And then we even scrunched you down a little further and you did a good job of that. You really followed the rules.
Yeah.
The next thing you mastered was this F word. Fasting.
I have not mastered that. Let me tell people that there are some serious rock stars out there, and I am not one of them, but I've done it. So
yeah, but for you, it's been great. I mean, your journey really was even 24 hours was a pretty big stretch. Now you kind of accidentally do that sometimes. Yeah. So you have advanced like that, even if you don't do 36 or 72 or whatever, some of them do. The best improvement was that it was a taboo. And now it's like sometimes, okay, so that's better. Yeah. So if we would say now she's going to add a little fasting, I mean, maybe that's as much fasting as she can do. Like she can go 24 hours. She feels good about it. It doesn't push her social stuff any further. The next year, if she wants to get the weight off, it's increase her metabolism through exercise. And that exercise is, again, one muscle group when you go to the gym and then leave.
Okay, good. That's what I did. I didn't know what I was doing. And in fact, I think I have an appointment with a personal trainer next week. So,
but I like what Linda did say. Shoulders are hard. Like if you look at I
was going to cry. I tried putting 10 pounds and I tried to lift it. And then they have this little knob where the 10 pound is the first weight. And then there's a knob. You can take off the first weight and do 5. I did 5 and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. How can you do 5 pounds?
Well, Gloria Gross, she's actually somebody who always comments on our things. And she says that she's been doing cardiac rehab and she can't believe how much better she's done in her cardiac workouts now that she's been ketogenic. And she says to say, hey, the energy will come, Jennifer. And she's right. Your body will get there. But as soon as you use up that fuel in your system, and your mitochondria, we're like, hey, you have not done this before. We were not ready for you. When you give them a little more practice, your body will say, no, we got to make some extra ketones because she's been working out about 3 times a week. So we got to make some more.
So should I be feeding it ketones then before I go, maybe?
Say it again.
Should I be feeding it ketones before I go just a little?
But if you're looking for weight loss, I would try without it. If the crash after the workout completely ruins your workday a couple more times in a row, I might feed it after you work out.
Oh,
I put the
okay.
ketones in after you work out, because if
Okay.
you put it in before, then it's going to use the ones that you ate. But if you go after you work out, then it's going to empty those cells, but then you'll restore your energy a little quicker.
Oh,
So
that's oh, good
yeah.
point. Good point. Okay, so well, we have many things that we want to talk about, but I think we have time for this next one that I know that a lot of people asked, and it is, what do you do after a cheat? Like, how do you
We've never seen that before.
never?
Never. Not me.
So, what's your advice? Because I mean, I have advice, and it sounds so stupid simple, but
Well, yeah, it's that human nature thing. So first of all, when I cheat, I usually need to tell somebody. I mean, I'm not even Catholic, but there's something about confessing and saying, all right, honey, I totally did this. So my husband usually is the one that gets to hear this. And he'll, say, be nice to yourself. He's usually very good at coaching me through that. And then he usually doesn't ever cheat. Like, he'll cheat, and it's not even a cheat. It's like, no, I intend to do this. I plan to do this, and I'm going to do this. And so, yeah. Framing it in my own mind has also been helpful for me to say, you know what, I do really well. My metabolism and my health is way better than it was. And reminding myself of that when I have something that is a super wonderful carbohydrate based something or other, becomes less shameful, less like guilt filled, and more of, it's part of the journey. Get back on the wagon, get back in the program, and then forgive myself. So I think that that mantra, that mental talk, I do a lot better job in this decade of life than I did in my 20s, where when I would mess it up, I would be pretty hard on myself. Like, oh, how would you do that? Why'd you do that? And really, but I've, the other thing that happens is if I feel really crappy, like if one glass of wine led to 2 glasses of wine, which hasn't happened in a while, but when I would when alcohol was my cheat, if that was the problem, I would I would add ketones because I would feel better so much faster. But it was still the mental talk for the next couple of like days that I had to make sure to just not be so hard on myself.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna do a full-on confession right now then.
Yes, let's hear it.
So I haven't had anything with white flour until yesterday.
Oh, wow. You had white flour.
Yeah. Well,
because you haven't.
No, I haven't. I've been so strict. Actually, I've been fearful of it because the white flour mixed with sugar turns into something that I feel like I had an addiction towards. And yesterday we celebrated one of my daughter's birthdays, and we had a bunch of people come over, and one of the ladies brought over homemade scones.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we had the spread already, but she brought scones that were like warm.
Oh, I can't decide if this is evil or good.
And I was like, oh, and I literally thought it would be rude if I didn't try it. And I was like, it's almost been 2.5 years. And I struggled. I sat there and I was like, why every party that we've had, we have these cupcakes, we have all this stuff. I've never, ever, ever cared to do that. But she brought homemade scones.
Oh my goodness.
And it took 30 minutes, and I said, you know what? It's been 2.5 years. This will be a test to see if I'm going to completely fall off the wagon or not. I took a bite of one, and I think everybody in my family like stopped, like, oh, what the hell is she doing?
And the alcoholic is going towards the booze cabinet, kind of.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, it was wonderful. And then I got sick.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I felt sick. It was good, and then it was not good. And the scones are still here.
Oh no, they're in your house?
They're in my house.
I've been throwing those out, man.
Well, I can't. That's the thing. I know the time and effort that this woman put into these homemade treats. So I am actually going to send that. My daughter goes back to work tomorrow. I'm going to send them with her to work. But they've been sitting in the fridge there, and I haven't had one today. And I went to go work out. So yay,
Yeah.
So,
see, and I think there is that part of the confidence of like, I can remember thinking, okay, could I possibly sit at the dinner table and not eat while my family eats? And for the first several times, I'm like, well, for heaven's sakes, no, that would be awful. I mean, what message am I sending them?
yeah.
And then I realized that's really not a message at all. I'm still there. The meal was more about the conversation than the food. And once I got those words squared away in my own mind, then I could sit at the supper table. They could eat and I could not. And oh, that's a novel idea.
Yeah,
So,
and they might not have even noticed. Like
right,
you don't make a big deal about it, or you're sipping tea or whatever. They don't even notice. They're just worried that they're eating.
right. You say, you know what? You've got carbs in the house. You've said no. You've kind of arrived. That said, okay, I did it. I didn't die. I didn't fall. There was all kinds of good choices on either side of that
Yeah,
hiccup.
yeah,
And it wasn't gonna, it didn't
yeah.
hypnotize you into the previous chapter.
So in my old days, I would have said, "Oh, I screwed up the diet." Then I would have probably not cared the rest of the day. Then it probably would have turned in from a day to 2 days. And then it would have turned in from 2 days
Right.
to a week and then a month. But I said to myself after I ate it, I said, you know what? I am going to enjoy this. I'm going to,
Yes.
I mean, I'm just going to enjoy it and I'm going to really test myself, but I am going to get back to it. And I did.
Right. You know, we do this a lot with our recovery patients. That we talk about their weekly check-ins. A lot of times, if a therapist couldn't be there, I would lead group, and you'd talk about how powerful it is that the grace you have for yourself is equivalent to what you give other people. And people say, no, 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 no. I'm forgiving of other people. I'm forgiving of other people. Yeah, but if you kind of take away all the performance and you look truly, did you keep score? Did you kind of say, ha, I did better than you? In your heart, did you say that? And when you start to recognize, why am I doing that? Why do I say that? And then you say, all right, I am going to be as forgiving to myself as I am to them. And that really has been this tipping point where when I would teach that to other people, I would self-reflect and say, I actually do that too. I don't keep score with them, and I stopped doing it with me.
Yeah.
It was the same skill.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, Sherry asked, what did the scone do to your numbers? Sherry, I'm not looking. Not looking.
No.
In fact, I'm out of strips, so I need to order some more anyway. And I think I'm going to do the gym about a week before I check that, because I think going to the gym releases that glycogen and then those numbers will be higher. And I don't want to, I think that'll be a disappointment to me and make me like not want to go. So I really don't want to look at it. I'm on the right track. I know I'm adding that healthy stressor to my diet to boost weight loss. I've been steady for a while now. You know, the book happened, the vacations happened, the scone happened. It's time to start stressing it and get back and do what I need to do.
And on a subconscious level, there is a message that comes when you ate the scone and you didn't feel good. Like, yeah, the flavor was good, but then I didn't feel good. And that part that speaks to you.
You know what? It wasn't just that I didn't feel good. Here's the interesting thing. I started creating, this is disgusting, but I started creating this mucus to where my nose was stuffy. I could feel swelling in my fingers. I could feel swelling in my sinuses, almost like an allergic reaction. And that was just so much confirmation to me that my body does not need to eat white flour and sugar. And it was like, I used to have sinus problems all the time. I still have them a little bit with allergies, but not, I used to go to the doctor every 3 months for antibiotic for sinus infection. So when that happened and all the mucus and everything that I used to get such a long time ago happened, I never related that to food. I always related that to allergens outside.
Isn't that great though? I mean, like, what would it have taken to even figure that out? Like, as a physician saying, I would have never even considered that food was the core source of why that facial pain and runny nose and drippy eyes. You'd have said, oh, no, we've got all these other things we give allergy credit to, not white flour.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, It was so eye-opening, the immediate reactions that your body had from, the swelling of the finger to take your ring off, where you're like, oh, I can't even get it past am I going to have to cut this off? But the mucus and the can't breathe type stuff, that was pretty intense.
Well, and the answers for future binges are fewer bites, and remember, the most pleasure comes out of the first bite anyway.
Yeah. So my thing is with cheats now, I just have it in my head that I make a decision, a conscious decision to do it. If I'm going to cheat, I'm going to do it and just be okay with it. But then I'm also making the decision immediately that it stops and I go right back to where I'm supposed to be, because I'm never going to fall backwards.
Yeah, it's exactly we talk about it in recovery groups too. Like, once you've done it, step forward and say,
I did it.
Back why I did that and what I gained and whether I do it again. So good job.
Yeah. So that was quite the learning experience. And I felt the need to share that only because if somebody else went through that, or, I don't know, it's just so eye-opening, I don't know.
Well, good job.
Thank you. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Dr. Boz, I know that, I just watched your YouTube, and I know that you're struggling. Your dad's struggling. So I am praying for him. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, thanks. It's tough watching your folks get sick and knowing that the next chapter is going to be a really tough one. So my dad is in the ICU, and they have him on dialysis, something he said he'd never do. And he's only got 14% of his kidneys left, maybe 12 by today. Actually, it was 14 yesterday. So it's either a funeral or some dialysis, and he's pretty frail. So,
well, let's start a prayer chain. Let's do something to where we can push the power of prayer your way and really hope for good outcomes.
Yeah, he is a good man. He's had an amazing life. And if this is the end of it, I'm so proud to be his daughter and thankful for all he gave me. And if he does get to the next chapter, then I'll enjoy that too. One day at a time. Yeah, tough chapter.
Tough chapter. Well, please say a prayer for Dr. Boz's dad if you could. And I think it's time to sign off. Maybe next week, there's a lot of people who want to talk about insulin resistance. Maybe we can make that topic.
That one's easy for me.
Yeah, let's do insulin resistance next week since we didn't have time. So tune in next week, and you guys have a wonderful evening. See you next Sunday.
See you.
Please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.